So in this video, we're going to be looking at reporting guidelines. I'll start by explaining how they can be used to support the transparency, reproducibility and quality of energy research. Then we'll go over a few examples of different kinds of guidelines and look at how they can be used and applied effectively. When we're reporting our research, it can be difficult to know which details are really important to include and which ones are fine to leave out. On the one hand, including too many irrelevant details can make it difficult to follow the study for the reader. But on the other, not including enough information, important information, can make it difficult for people to know how well-founded our conclusions are, or maybe to apply that method in other settings. And especially it can be difficult or even impossible to reproduce the work that we did to see if the results still stand up. So reporting guidelines can help address these issues by spelling out exactly which details it's important to report for different kinds of study. To illustrate this, let's take a look at the TReQ guidelines, which were put together to support reporting of qualitative research. They're available in the form of a checklist, with points covering things like characteristics of the researchers, the study design, the analysis, and aspects of the way that findings are presented. For example, in the section on study design, there's a subsection on sampling which asks you to report things like how the sample was selected, how the participants were approached, what the sample size was, and how many people declined to participate or dropped out. I've found that using reporting guidelines helps give me confidence that I'm including everything I need to, and also importantly, it helps me demonstrate that I'm doing this, which can be really helpful when it comes to peer review. They can help speed up the writing of the work because it gives you a clear structure to follow. And I actually find it really useful to take a look at the reporting guidelines when I'm planning a study to make sure I'm capturing everything important. One thing you might be wondering is how to pick the most appropriate guidelines to follow. The Equator Network's a great resource from the field of health research, including advice on which reporting guidelines are most relevant for different kinds of study. To give a few examples, consort guidelines are primarily used for randomized control trials. For systematic reviews, many people turn to PRISMA. For predictive models, TRIPOD is often used. And for qualitative work, TReQ's a good one to follow, and there are many more. It's important to note that most of these guidelines were put together with medical research in mind, and they might call for reporting of details that aren't really relevant in the case of your own work. It's completely fine to use your own discretion and only report the details that you think are relevant, but we think it's better to consider and dismiss reporting certain details than to neglect considering them altogether. So most commonly used guidelines include a checklist of things that you'll need to report in your study, and it can be helpful to check this in advance of doing the work so that you know you're capturing everything you need. And finally, lots of researchers will cite the reporting guidelines that they've used so readers can know how and why they've decided what to report. To sum up, reporting guidelines make it easier for you to decide which details to report when you're writing up your research. They make it quicker and easier to do this. They make it easier for you to justify what you've decided to report. And they make it easier for other researchers to evaluate your work and to reproduce it.